Okay, so we are in the second video of this lighting series, and currently we have these two planes. For those of you who have landed on this video for the first time without watching the first video, I recommend to watch that first. And if you are eager to know what these are the planes in Blender that are used as a lighting source to highlight and to act as a diffuse for this particular material. So if I show the rendered view, that looks something like this. So we have two main lights. This is the emission plane and a area light, and this is the diffuse, which we are using to illuminate the back portion of the object so that the main parts can be showed correctly. So if I remove it from here, you will eventually see that the lighting in this particular area will be affected a bit because it was a low intensity plane. But we'll be moving on to other methods, how you can use different objects and methods to make your lighting better. Let's see if we want to render with a new light altogether, removing the diffused one. And let's see how it is looking in the render and how we can improve that thing. So let me increase the power. So let it be 120. I guess it's quite harsh. Maybe 80 will work. Yeah, seems decent. Let me reduce the intensity of this light as well. Okay, so we need to make it 50. And for this light, we can also reduce it to, let's say, 65. So that it is not very harsh from one side and very soft from other side. So let's zoom in to see the current view. And I guess I'm pretty much happy with the current look. Okay, so let it reach 32 frames. And you, by the way, you can change it from here. You can click here, noise threshold, and you can increase it to 60 at least. It is a good practice to see at least 60 to 80 samples of your render, because 32 is a low number to rely on. So eventually you need to crank it up a bit so that you get a good idea what will the render look like if we render it at 200 frames or let's say 150 frame 175 frames. So how will it look? So 80 frames is, I guess, enough to give you that particular idea. Now all we can use, now we need to play with this particular menu that is here. So starting with the light paths. So a lot of the tutorials that I saw on Blender, some of them said that it is very helpful. Some of them said it is don't touch this. By default, it is enough to give you all the better lighting. But I will suggest that you experiment it with yourself and your system, because ultimately Blender reacts differently in different system. By that means, when I use it professionally in my office, so the color management, I always need to reduce it to at least 0.5 0.5 to 0.4, because in that particular system it behaves like it is currently looking. So I need to adjust in that, but in my laptop it is looking completely decent by default, so I don't need to make much tweaks. All right, so this is the thing. If you see changes, make sure to play with these options, and you'll eventually get to know what is better for you. So we by default get these options in this particular menu, and this is for illumination of light. So if we'll go with full global illumination, it will increase all of the numbers 32 you can see. So it will, you can see the minor details that are getting highlighted now when we are using the full illumination. So you can see this additional pop-up, these additional lightings that are reflecting now that weren't before. So if we see fast global illumination, it will reduce the number to 8, and you can see a minor decrease in the light, right? And in objects like glass, Let me make a glass shader so you can easily understand. We need to connect this to surface, and I guess this should pretty much do the work with roughness 0. Yeah, we can increase the IUR a bit. I know that is looking funny, but for understanding purposes, it's enough. All right, so let's get back to the layout mode. So let's get to this particular menu. So what if I reduce it to 0? So look at this. Look at this. The glossiness that was there in the class is now completely black because we are not allowing any of the glossy rays to pass, and we have completely eliminated it from this particular viewport. So that's why there is no glossiness. I hope you are getting the point here. So these are all different parameters that you need to tweak. You can't make it 0. Please don't make it 0 because it will make the scene worst. But yeah, you can reduce and you can improve as per your convenience. So if I want to increase the diffuse, suppose I want to make it 6. So these are basically very helpful for solids. The solid objects that have more of a metallistic or a very hard surface material inside them, it eventually improves their overall presence and highlights. Transmission, volume, transparent, it's all for the better appearance of the object. So if I make it 0, you'll see that it will reduce the transparency of the object if the object is transparent. So these are the values that you need to work through, and make sure to experiment and change it as per your convenience and the point where you feel that it's enough. So by default, some of us keep it 444, and I guess it's a good practice as well because and I often make the volume 1 so that it looks decent. And always may feel free to make some changes. So this is the first change that you can do for improving the lighting in your scene. Now coming down to this particular exposure and gamma, as I showed you earlier as well, that you can reduce this particular thing for as a contrast, and this is for the brightness. So in case you feel that your scene is having a dim light, you can simply increase and decrease it till the point you are satisfied. So let's keep it to 1. I guess it's enough. Or if we want to decrease a bit, we can keep it 0.9. So the shadows can be amplified a bit more. I guess this is looking great. We don't need to make any changes here now. You can see the look that is here, and this can play a really important role while rendering the products that you are making, suppose for any particular studio or any particular organizations. So what sometimes organizations prefer is that this white or any type of background that I have selected should be properly visible, and it should be completely blank, but it should be looking decent. So what sometimes happens is when we find a particular volume for our project to render, whatever model you have made. So what sometimes happens is the background and the backdrop, whatever you are using, becomes dull. So we are satisfied with this particular object, but we are not satisfied with the background because the client eventually wants that the background should be clear. So what in that particular scenario you can do is you can simply go to look, medium high contrast, very high contrast. This is the final limit, and if in very low contrast, the background will look something like this. So it sometimes helps a lot when I set it to high contrast, because it eventually retains the overall brightness and composure of the particular object without affecting it much, right? When we make small products, the products that don't contain a lot of materials or a complex set of materials, it eventually helps to increase the background a bit and enhance the overall picture quality for the final render. So yeah, this is one of the very helpful menus that you can always tweak some changes into. Now, going on to Filmic standard, all of these values that are there, you can simply leave it to Filmic, because it is a very general practice in the Blender community that we don't touch Filmic. Although you can check what others have to offer for you. So standard is quite a bit uh, more bright than the Filmic options, because you can see that it has hell lot of brightness filled in it, and the shadows are looking very much weird, for the simple explanation. So standard is also not very good, you can say. It can be in some scenes, but mostly we don't use standard. And same goes with raw. Raw can be used in the models that are like portraits or any sculpting that you have done. In that particular scenario, I have used sometimes raw lighting. So that is good, because that keeps highlighting the particular part of the model, and it is a good option to go in that particular scenario if you are sculpting a model, or if you are making a particular character in the scene and you want to highlight its face and body and all of that. Then raw lighting can be helpful in that particular scenario, but Filmic is enough for any common users, so make sure to stick with it. Now let's move to our second method, the one that is currently used by a lot of artists. So what they eventually do is they add up the lighting. Let me see where it is. Reduce the overall diameter of the light so that it can help us to get a diffuse. So what that means is, suppose it's in 10 watt, right? And it's getting us another source of light, making highlighting this particular area and having some reflections from this particular angle. But what if we want to reduce its diameter to, let's say, 7? So we have reduced it to 7. Now what we can do is we can simply make it -5, and let's see what it does. So just wait, because it's rendering, and eventually you are able to notice that it's acting as a diffuse light. So I didn't find this particular action very helpful, but yeah, in the scenes in which you have to represent a dark house, a particular area that you don't want to highlight in a composition, or any setup that you have made, and you want a very dark particular area that gets eliminated by the light source that you have used in the scene, that is lighting the whole of the area, but you don't want that particular area to get noticed, then you can use this method as a diffuse or as a dark option to reduce the amount of light that is falling in that particular direction. And see, it's it's increasing, even though the power is -5 watts only, but you can see the effect that it's pulling in this scene. So it's a very hit and miss kind of trick. It can work, it can't work sometime, because it will eventually affect overall presence of light in a very intense form. You can see it is completely looking black here. It's not like the surface is visible in the render. It's going completely black. So yeah, if you are satisfied with the use of this, you can use this. But if you aren't, make sure to use diffuse planes. That they are a better option to go for. But going for diffused light is not always the good option to go for. So yeah, these were some of the additional methods that you can use. Now, moving on to the final component of this particular video. So what we will do is we will attach a HDRI to this particular scene. Now, there is a lot of what you can say contradictions in the community as well, that HDRIs don't provide good kind of shadows and we need to amplify them. So firstly, if you are new to this concept, let me show you how an HDRI is found. So simply go to the browser and click on plus. We need to find a good HDRI for ourselves. So you can simply type HDRI, and Polyheaven is there. HDRI, there is a HDRI Heaven as well. Let me find it. But see, let's go with Polyheaven as well. So browse HDRIs. You can simply find a lot of free HDRIs in the internet, because it's not hard to find, and you'll see that these are different kinds of setups that you can eventually use as a lighting source. So you don't need to make all of the tweaks like adding additional lights and all of that thing again. You can simply choose any one of them, you can download it, and you can set it right here. So you need to go to the shading tab. Let me remove this thing because it's irritating me. Okay, so we need to go to shading tab, go to world option. Now you can do from here as well, from here as well. Both are doing the same thing. So you need to find this earth, click on the yellow option, and you need to click on environment texture. So what eventually it has done is it has attached a environment texture node in which we can connect our HDRIs. Okay, so you can see in the reflections that it's reflecting the outer HDRI environment that we have attached just now. Let me increase the strength of the HDRI to, I guess. And if you'll rotate the viewport, you can clearly see the trees that we have and all of the components that are there in the HDRI. So what eventually you can do is you can click here, press Ctrl plus T if your node wrangler is on, and then you can tweak the particular light source till the time you don't find the correct shadows and the correct reflections for your scene, and rotate it as per your understanding. So these are one of the very reliable methods in case of faster solutions if you're looking for. So you can use HDRI in that particular scenario, and it will save you a lot of time in those kind of stuff. So yeah, so this was the introduction to basic lighting part 2, and I hope you got some new understandings of objects and lights. So in the third video, we'll be understanding more of the concepts to how to light a particular scene and how to use different lights all together so that your composition can look great and you took out good renders. So yeah, see you there. Bye bye.